Hello guys, welcome to our course Computer Networks and Security. In this course, we are going to look at the following topics. We will get a chance to appreciate and understand various data communication model, but in our instance, I think we'll just focus on three. Then we'll look at the various networking standards that are in use. We also look at networking devices and the various transmission media that are in use. Look at cabling materials and the tools that we use in preparing or making the various network cables that we use. Then we also talk about troubleshooting and maintenance of networks. Topic number 6, we'll look at designing and implementing networks. So at the end of this course, you should have an idea of how you design a network and implement it, be it a small office network, a home network. Then we'll go to look at access control and management of rights over network resources. Then we'll look at endpoint security. And last, we'll do somewhat lab exercise to get some hands-on on how to prepare network cables, how to terminate cables. So hopefully by the end of this module, you should have acquired quite a considerable knowledge in the area of computer networks and security. So my first question to you will be, what is a computer network? And I think we are all familiar with this definition. In our previous semester, we were doing fundamentals of information systems, where we go to define what a computer network is. And this is just the first time we are meeting this term, but we will just try to redefine it so that at least we recap or add one or two things to the definition that we already know. We also want to define what is network security. This definition will have it later when we reach the section talking about network security, but I think even if you look at the term, it is just self-explanatory. Then we'll look at what is communication. So the terms that we have here, they are not very new terms. You did communication, computers, and drawing, and I think you looked thoroughly at the aspect of communication. So from our definition that we used previously in fundamentals of information system, we said a network is a system of interconnected computers and computerized devices or peripherals. So in this case, I highlighted this part, devices and peripherals. This just goes to show that instead of the simple definition where we say computer network is an interconnection of computing devices, where we are limiting our access or the functionality of our networks to computing devices. You realize with the Internet of Things coming in, everything is now computerized. Everything can communicate over a network. You can open and close doors while you're at your office. You can turn on your stove while you're at the office. You can turn on and off your lights at home. So it means these devices have some ability to communicate over a network. So they have some computerized part of them that enables them to communicate over a network, which means if it's closing and opening a door, there has to be some computerized circuitry that can send communication signals over a network. So from the area definition where we're just focusing on computers and computers and computers, now we are realizing the interconnection of computing devices is now including a lot of things, a lot of devices. So this interconnection facilitates information sharing among devices, among people, among organizations. Some might want to say this interconnection facilitates sharing of data. I know you have also defined these two terms, so we will not go into it. What is data? What is information? But for our intent and purposes, we just say this interconnection facilitates sharing of resources. So these resources can either be data, they can either be information, they can be hardware resources. So I put the term resource there to be inclusive of all the things that we can share over a network. And in the computing world, these connections can either be wired or wireless. So our definition now comes in with what? With three things. One, we're saying there's a connection medium which can be wired or wireless. There's resource sharing. Then there are devices. So I expect your definition now to be different from the one that we used from the course fundamentals of information systems. As someone who is doing computer networking for your diploma, your definition should ensure that you have an appreciation, or should demonstrate that you have an appreciation of the various networking components that make up what? A computer network. So in our definition here, we've said that the system of interconnected devices allows us to share what? Resources over what? A connection medium, which can be wired or wireless. And what are the resources that can be shared? And this now brings us to what? To the uses of computer networks. We can categorize the uses of computer networks into 4 or 5 categories: business applications, home applications, mobile use, social use, academic or research use. In terms of business applications, we are talking about file sharing, IPTV, IP phones, e-commerce, electronic databases. These are resources or applications that are there to support the broader business operations using what? Computer networks. Someone might ask, what resources can be shared over a computer network in a business? Let's say you have your shop, probably it's OK or OTM or Bon Marché, and you have your warehouse somewhere in Waterfalls there. You are running out of stock at one shop. If you are going to go into your organizational network, you might realize that one shop might still have a lot of stock and it's moving slowly. Without a computer network, you cannot access this resource or this information about the various stock levels at various branches, which means you were not going to be able to share the stock if need be, where you can request for excess stock from one shop to be transferred to your shop while you're waiting for what? For resupplies. VPNs, virtual private networks. There are some business applications that require security or additional layers of security so that you don't use the internet directly. You can have this to add a layer of security when you're communicating between various departments in various locations in the same organization. So these are some of the business applications that we can use in our day-to-day operations. Home applications. Remember earlier on I was talking about opening and closing of doors while in the office, turning on and off of a fridge because of the Internet of Things. This is being facilitated by what? By connectivity. So that's another use for what? For computer networks. You can now even monitor your home security, your CCTV at home, while you're at work. All those are what? Uses of computer networks. Mobile use. These days, as long as you have internet connection, you don't necessarily need to be given directions by someone to be able to go somewhere. You can just use what? Your GPS on the go. Just type in the name of the location where you want to go, and a route is mapped for you. Whether you're driving or you're walking, even the estimated time of arrival from where you have punched in the relevant coordinates. Mobile use, instant messaging, mobile commerce. We can also take this mobile use and bunch it into what? Into business applications, but I just thought maybe let me put it separately here so that we just see how broad the use of computer networks is. Social use. Who doesn't have a social account amongst you? Networks are bringing us closer together with our colleagues from high school, from preschool, from primary school, from colleges and universities through the use of social networks. And it has now become what? Big business, these social networks. While it can stand out as a category on its own, but we can also branch it under business applications, academic and research use. All these are uses of what? Of computer networks. So you realize in using computer networks in these categories of applications that I've listed, you are able to access a wide array of resources. This includes information about arts, if you like music, movies, TV shows. You can access these over a computer network. So there are a lot of added benefits or uses for computer networks. And you realize these uses, they're bringing business to the others while they're kicking others out of business. For example, let's talk about IPTV. It means the ordinary broadcasting TV now is a serious competitor in terms of IPTV. Instead of people watching their favorite sport on television, they can now watch it through live streaming. You have to do it yourselves, channels where you are taught to do a lot of things instead of going to consult someone how to make a cake. You can consult these DIYs on the computer networks, that is on the internet, where you are taught how to do certain things. You get information about health history. So There are a lot of uses of computer networks. Because of the magnitude of use of computer networks, it means there's also need for them to be properly managed and to be properly secured. So you realize that by just this is not all there is to the use of computer networks, what I've highlighted here. But I think this just goes on to demonstrate the magnitude of use of computer networks in our day-to-day lives. So what it basically means is even the magnitude of administering and managing these computer networks, it also what increases. So when we talk about interconnectivity, we are referring to how various networking nodes or various devices, let me use the device since it's the term that we've been using, how various devices are connected to each other in a network so that they can be able to what? To communicate. So this connection is said it can be physical, or it can be logical, or it can be both. So this is the interconnectivity that we are talking about. That devices are connected physically or logically, or they can be what? Both. So you might be having two devices being connected over a wire, while the third one is being connected over what? A wireless connection. Or we might be having two devices connected, one to the left, one to the right. Or we might be having devices connected in a star topology or in a ring. This is the kind of what interconnectivity that we are talking about. Then the next item or classification that we want to look at is administration. So from an admin point of view, a network can be a private network belonging to a single organization, or it can be a network that is managed by an array of administrators from different networks, which becomes what? An internetwork. And a good example of this what is the internet. There's no single administrator for the internet, but you have a single administrator for you have an administrator for a local area network or for a network belonging to an organization. Then lastly, we look at what? Architecture. I won't dwell much on this. We talked about client-server architecture, peer-to-peer architecture in detail. So this is what the other classification that we have. Now that we have talked about the four classifications that can be used to classify computer networks, let's talk about the networks that are there according to these classifications. First, we have the personal area network, and I think this relates to the first item that we talked about here. Yes, where we're talking about what? The geographical span, where we said probably it can be an area covered by your Bluetooth device, probably are connecting your phone to your headset or to your speaker. That's what a personal area network. So usually, most of us are not very comfortable in connecting cables. Even if the computer cables are color coded, you know that the black cables, they are usually for power. The blue one probably is the VGA. You get users being confused by these cables. So when we now use Bluetooth, it makes life very easy for users. You don't have to think which cable is should I connect. You just turn on your Bluetooth on any of the devices that you want connected within that personal area network. If it's a mouse, You don't need to know where the port of the mouse is. You just want you turn on the Bluetooth and what the wireless connection what will do the job for you. So these personal area networks, especially the wireless ones, have come in to make life for computer users very easy, especially when it comes to the personal area network relating to a computer and its devices. Remember, we said a computer network can be what? A connection of computing devices. So if we take, for example, a desktop, it can be a personal area network where we have what? A mouse connecting to what? To the desktop, the motherboard. We have the keyboard connecting as well with what? With the motherboard and giving output on what? On the screen. So that's one simple example of what? Of a personal area network where we can use either cables or wireless connections to what? To connect devices within what? This personal area network. Then we have the LAN. This is usually a network that covers what? A limited geographical area, and one of its key characteristics is that it's privately owned. It also has access points. Now, the idea of access points, we can simply put it as a device that every other device in the network needs to communicate with for it to be able to what? To access various resources on the network. So in this case, a good example of an access point can be someone who gossips a lot about people in class. If you want to hear what John is doing, you talk to Peter. If you want to hear what Sam is doing, you talk to Peter. If you want to hear what Mary is doing, you talk to Peter. So Peter becomes our access point. And when in networking terms, he becomes our router or our switch, where all information about things in the class has to pass what? Through Peter. Even in our areas where we live, we have these people we can call access points. They are the routers and the switches in our community. They gossip a lot. Everyone has to talk to them if they want to hear or learn about something. I don't know whether it's a good or a bad characteristics, but we need these access points in what? In our networks. While in real life, it's debatable. So the access points will connect what? To almost all the devices in what? In the network, be it personal computers, be it printers, be it tablets. They will connect what? Through the access point. So the LAN is quite a number of advantages that it brings to the organizations. Sharing of applications and devices, enabling easy access to information and other applications. I think these advantages of LANs, we are familiar with them. How are local area networks implemented? Earlier on we said the connection can either be wired or wireless. So these are the three main technologies that are mainly used for what? For implementation of LANs. We have the IEEE 802.3, popularly known as the Ethernet, and this is used for point-to-point connections within what? Our local area network. Then we have the IEEE 802.11, which is used for wireless connections. And I think these days, this is the one that we are now calling the Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi, the Wi-Fi. Then we have the token ring. So these are the technologies or standards that are used to implement local area networks. I know we will dig deep into this technology so that we get a detailed appreciation of what the IEEE is 802 and what in the 802.3 and the 802.5 and even the what the 802.11. We'll look at this when we look at what at standards. The next item that we want to look at is the MAN, Metropolitan Area Network. This is a network which covers a large geographical areas compared to a LAN. So it ranges from about 5 kilometers to what? To 50 kilometers in range. So it can include several buildings, several campuses, within a single set. Let's say, for example, the University of Zimbabwe, it used to have 3 campuses. The School of Social Work that was downtown, which is now an MSU campus. Then we have the Parenyatwa campus and the main campus in UZ. So it could have what? Its network linking those 3 campuses together, making what? A metropolitan area network. And the backbone for these MANs is usually high capacity and high speed fiber optics. The MAN can be formed in form of a token ring network or a fiber distributed interface. So the MAN works between what? The local area network and the wide area networks. So it's more like a go between what these 2 networks, but it will be specifically focusing to what? To a particular institution. Then we go on to look at the wide area network. This network covers quite a large geographical area as compared to the other 2 that we talked about, which means it can span even a city, a country, a continent to the global outlook. So it covers quite a huge area, and the one will include a combination of various LANs being connected together, and it makes use of layer 3 devices in the sorry, not that it makes use. The generally functions at the lower 3 areas of the OSI reference model, which are the physical layer, the data link, and the network layer. And this wide area network, they provide connectivity to the metropolitan area network and the LANs. And their main characteristics, or their keys, the high-speed backbone they use, be it fiber or any other high-speed connectivity media that is. So most wide area networks consist of 2 distinct components that define their functionality, which is the transmission line that moves the data between the various machines that are connecting in the network, and the switching elements. These are the specialized computers or devices that connect 2 or more communicating transmission lines. So remember earlier when we talked about access points. So these are the access points that we are talking about in MANs, which are the switching points and the routing points. So they enable the routing of the relevant communications to the various subnets or the various networks in the WAN. And when data arrives from a transmission line to the switching element, it will choose an appropriate outgoing line to forward that communication to. So that communication will be forwarded through the appropriate line, where it will also be received at another switching element at the other end. before it is passed to the relevant computing device. So this switching element, we said, this is what popularly known as as the router. And another thing that also defines the LAN is that they now bring in service providers called what? The internet service providers and network service providers. So just to sum up some of the key functionalities of a WAN, it brings down the element of switching. It also brings in the elements of various service providers. And lastly, the geographical area it covers. So various protocols that are used in wide area networks are is listed there. We'll explore them when you look at the OS and the TCP/IP. Let's look at the other categorization, which is the internetwork, which is basically a collection of individual computers that are connected by intermediate networking devices to work as a single network. So this is basically a network of networks, popularly known as as the internet. So it is the network of networks. The internet makes use of ISPs, internet service providers, network service providers, to provide connectivity to homes, enterprises, organizations, and individuals. And one of the key protocols or technologies that are used when accessing services on the internet is the HTTP, HTTPS, and the www. These are some of the most popular technologies that are used to access resources when using internetworks. So some of the key aspects that you should remember when looking at internetworks or the internet is the use of protocols. We have the LAN protocols in use, token ring, SISMA CD, WAN technologies, we have routing and switching, we have network management, then we have open system interconnection protocols. So we'll dive deeper into this when we're going to look at standards and models in detail. So this can summarize our the various network classifications that we've looked at so far, from personal area networks to local area networks to MAN to WAN and to the internet. So let's allow ourselves some time to reflect on the areas that we've covered so far before we go on to look at the second part, where we want to look at the data communication models. So we'll now look at data communication models, but before we go into that, we just give ourselves some time to reflect on the areas that we have covered so far. Thank you very much.